What is going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my Feixiao pre-release guide. In this video, I cover everything there is to know about Feixiao, from her kit, her best relics and planar sets, her light cones, her teammates, and her pull priorities. So if you enjoy this type of content, let me know by liking the video, leaving a comment section below, and subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. Feixiao is coming in hot to take over the spot of characters like Dr. Ratio and Boothill as a single target menace. Her kit revolves around her teammates, helping her build stacks to launch a very powerful ultimate. At E0, for every 2 individual hits that are performed by the team, Feixiao will gain a flying aura stack. Once you get to 6 stacks, which are 12 individual hits, you'll be able to launch your very strong ultimate. You can stack up to 12 flying auras at a time if you really wish to, and that means that you can fire off 2 consecutive ultimates back to back. Naturally, any kit that involves frequency of hits gears towards follow-up attack teams, which is pretty much what she is, a follow-up attack unit. Feixiao has a regular basic attack that deals 100% damage to a single target. Nothing special there. Her skill is also a single target hit that deals 200% damage and also triggers her own follow-up attack. This means that this attack will also gain Feixiao 1 full stack of flying auras, which means that she's a very skill point hungry character, which is something that I have to take into consideration when we're building our teams around Feixiao. Her ultimate is her main damage dealing move, which deals 700% damage to a single target. At the same time, this attack also deals toughness damage to enemies regardless of their weakness type, and has its break efficiency doubled if the enemy is not weakness broken. This makes her a universal DPS character when it comes to breaking the enemy, but it doesn't mean that she deals extra damage because the enemies don't have the weakness. If the enemies have the wind weakness, she'll deal more damage. If they don't have the weakness, she won't deal more damage. It's pretty simple. Aside from her ultimate mechanic, once per turn, Feixiao is going to launch a follow-up attack after an ally hits the enemy target. This attack deals 110% damage to a single enemy and also increases her own damage by 60% for 2 turns, which is really strong. So you launch your follow-up attack once, and then you have a 60% damage bonus to stack on to Feixiao. She also has a very useful technique. You pretty much enter the onrush mode, which means that she gets engulfed in this tornado and you run around, sucking every enemy in the vicinity, and then once you start the match, everything just gets hit with this massive nuke. Essentially, she does 200% damage. You only have 1 enemy, and then for every enemy that you have on top of that, she increases that multiplier by 100 up to a max of 2,000. So every enemy is going to take about 2,000 if you have 10 enemies swirling up in that vortex. Aside from that, when you enter battle, you gain 1 stack of flying auras, which is also very nice, helping you launch that very first ultimate really early on. She also has very good traces. Her A1 increases her own attack by 48% for 3 turns after launching her skill, which is very strong. Her A2 makes it to where her ultimate counts as a follow-up attack while simultaneously increasing her follow-up attack crit damage by 36%, which is insane. And then her A3 allows her to gain 3 flying auras as soon as the battle begins. And also it makes it to where if Feixiao for some reason doesn't launch a follow-up attack during her turn, or in that whole turn, or for 1 turn she doesn't launch a follow-up attack, whenever she gets her turn again, she will gain 1 stack of flying auras. This makes it to where if she gets CC'd or slept on, or I don't know, something happens to Feixiao to where she's not able to launch her follow-up attack, she's not going to fall behind. She's going to have that 1 stack every time she takes a turn and she doesn't launch her follow-up attack, which is pretty nice. And then as far as her trace stats, she gets 28% attack, 12% crit rate, and 12.5% defense, which are pretty decent. The crit rate is just fantastic because she really does rely on landing those crits. Feixiao is a really straightforward character to build. She is a crit DPS character after all. This is not our first follow-up attack character that we build, which is also a crit DPS. So everybody should know that attack percent, crit damage, crit rate, speed, all those are very important. But let's talk about her relic sets. Her best in slot relic set is going to be the Valorous relic set. Is going to give her 12% attack, 6% crit rate. Again, can't stress it enough. You need those crits, and an ultimate damage bonus of 36% after launching her follow-up attack. So a good rule of thumb to have this active at all times is you always launch her ultimate after she launches a follow-up attack, and that way you know for a fact you have the 36% damage bonus ready to go. Feixiao is one of the few characters in the game that can take advantage of the Valorous set to its max effectiveness because of how her kit works. So if you have Firefly, you probably have been farming the Firefly set. You probably already have some good pieces for your Feixiao. The second set I'm going to talk about is going to be the Wind set. Again, she's another character that can take full advantage of the Wind set, including the damage bonus of the Wind set, because usually the characters that, like, every character uses the Wind set, but they're not Wind. But Feixiao can use the Wind set, and she's also Wind, so she takes advantage of that 10% damage increase that she gets from the 2-piece set, and then the 4-piece set gives her the action advance on when she fires the ultimate, which is insane. She's going to take advantage of that so much because she fires off the ultimate pretty much once every turn or once every turn and a half in a really decent team. So best in slot is going to be the Valorous. Second best in slot is going to be the Wind set. So that's pretty good. Another option is obviously the Ash Blazing set. But if you are going to run the 4-piece Ash Blazing, I'd rather you run the 2-piece Ash Blazing and the 2-piece Pioneer, because odds are your second DPS, your second follow-up character is going to be either Topaz or going to be Moza. In either case, they both debuff the enemy, and that gives you an extra 12% damage bonus to your ultimate. So with the 2-piece Ash Blazing and the 2-piece Pioneer, you have 32% extra damage bonus on your ultimate, which is insane. It's pretty much a 4-piece set disguised as a 2-piece. So 2-piece Ash Blazing, 2-piece Pioneer is actually pretty strong. As far as Planar Sets, the Durant set is definitely her best in slot by a lot. She gets 25% damage bonus and 25% crit damage bonus. With her team setup, she stacks up those 5 follow-up attacks that you need really fast and early on. So for the rest of the battle, you have 25% damage bonus and 25% crit damage bonus. It's actually really strong on her. So if you haven't farmed this yet, go ahead and farm it. Again, if you have been farming Firefly, you should have at least 1 or 2 decent pieces that you can throw on your Feixiao. Her second best in slot is going to be the Inert Salsado. Obvious reasons, you get crit rate from it. You also get 15% damage bonus on your ultimate or follow-up attacks, whichever one, because she uses both. So Salsado is a natural good piece to slot in case you don't have a decent Durant set. The last one I'm going to recommend is going to be the Glamoth for those people that like faster characters. Let's say you're going for Eidolons on your Feixiao. Let's say you have it like E4, E6. I think Glamoth you can get a lot of value because you will run speed boots on those. And if you have 160 speed, you can take advantage of 18% more damage, which honestly, if I am not going to hyper invest in my Feixiao, I'm probably not even going to bother with Glamoth. It's just an option if you don't have anything else. Again, if your Glamoth set has the best substats, I think it's better than just having the Duran. For the Duran set, because you get the 25% crit damage, just focus on getting a crit rate Duran piece, and then that should be fine because you are getting 25% crit damage from it, from the set itself. So don't stress too hard if you can't get crit damage, crit rate on it. Just get crit rate and something else, and then that should be okay. My personal build for my Feixiao is going to be the 4-piece Valorous, 4-piece Duran, and here is what it looks like. It's currently on my Yun Li. I can't stress the high crit rate. That's why my crit rate is above 90. I don't think it's enough. I want it closer to 100 if possible. She needs to hit those crits for you to be able to take advantage of the damage, because if you only miss 1 crit, your damage is going to plummet. It's not like a character like Acheron that has multiple hits, that 1 or 2 crits that don't hit is not going to really affect that much of the outcome. But in a character like Feixiao, Dr. Ratio, Zila, stuff like that, characters that only have certain amount of hits, like very limited amount of hits, like 1 or 2, I can't stress enough how important having a high crit rate is. So build crit rate, and yeah, just focus on crit rate. As far as the chest main stat, we're going to go for the crit rate first, and if your crit rate is good enough, like for instance my Yun Li, then you can swap to crit damage if your crit rate is going to be good enough. For instance, my set, I have really cracked stats on my Valorous set, so I am able to run a crit damage chest with 90 plus crit rate. So if you can do that, then run crit damage. Unless you can get above 80% crit rate, I wouldn't bother with crit damage chests, okay? Losing a run because you miss a crit is something that you don't want to experience, you know? Also, over investing in crit rate with Feixiao is really not that bad, because you get a surplus of crit damage via Robin, via Traces, and also via her Planar set. So over investing crit rate, just trust me, once you get that done, you can upgrade to a crit damage chest eventually. As far as boots, since Feixiao is a character that builds her ultimate passively via her teammates, you can get away with running attack boots, but again, you always want to get as close as 130 speed as possible, because you want to be able to get those turns in before the cycle's over. Aside from that, running speed boots is also very strong, but I do want to let you know that the damage drop off is kind of noticeable. If you have Robin, is a lot less noticeable, but if you don't have Robin, then, which you should have Robin, like if you're going for Feixiao, you shouldn't have Feixiao if you don't have Robin. I'm just going to lay it out right now. So Robin kind of patches up the attack boots thing, but for most people are going to be running attack boots. Myself, I am going to be running attack boots, and I'm going to be trying Feixiao in multiple different teams. I am going to run her exclusively on attack boots. My build has no speed substats at all, so she's going to be stuck with her 112 speed that she already has. So that's it. That's all she gets. Obviously, getting to 134 speed with attack boots is a little bit unrealistic. You're going to need about 23 or 22 22 extra speed without boots. That's insane. Unless you're running I don't know, Hanya, Asta, something like that, you're not going to reach those speeds. I would go for attack boots if I was you, or speed boots, whichever the case. You are going to have Robin anyway, more than likely, or hopefully you're going to have Robin. So running speed boots is not going to be a huge damage drop off for you. All right, as far as the orb, the damage difference between the attack orb and the wind orb is actually very, very small. Wind orb usually beats out the attack orb by about 3 or 2.8% ish, but that can be circumvented with good substats. So if you have an attack orb that have really good substats, I'd rather you use that one instead of having a wind orb with bad substats, if that makes any sense. And then last but not least, the rope is pretty self-explanatory. She doesn't use energy as a way to fire off her ult, so attack rope is the only option here. There's no if, ands, or buts. No, nothing else, just stack orb, okay? As far as her light cone options, cruising in the Stellar Sea at S5, which is the free-to-play her to shop light cone, is going to be her baseline. That's why it's 100%. S5 swordplay is very, very close at 99.6, which is only 0.4 away from cruising in the Stellar Sea. It really depends on your crit rate status. If you have really, really good crit rate, then swordplay is going to be close to cruising in the Stellar Sea. But if your crit rate is really low, then cruising in the Stellar Sea is going to be a lot better. The difference between S1 and S5 swordplay is about 11%. So if you have anything in between, just know that you are within that range. Following up with S1 Topaz's light cone at 112.8%, which is really strong. However, this light cone you might want to put on Mosey or on Topaz herself to help Feixiao further increase her damage. S1 ratio light cone is actually really, really strong on Feixiao at 116%, and her signature light cone at 123.5. If you already have ratio's light cone, I don't recommend going for her own light cone, and instead I'd rather you get the E1, and that way you can use ratio's light cone on Feixiao and then have the benefit of having her E1, and that is going to increase her damage by a lot. Unsurprisingly, Feixiao being a follow-up attack unit, she follows the same team structure as most follow-up attack units like Dr. Ratio. The only difference is that she focuses more on attack frequency rather than debuffs. Unsurprisingly, you probably already know where I'm going with this. She has her best team, and her best team is pretty much her, Topaz and Numbeat, Robin, and Aventurine, you know, the typical best follow-up attack team. But the good thing about Feixiao is that she has different options when it comes to characters to build those teams. So for instance, the second DPS slot or the sub DPS slot, which would normally go to Topaz hands down, now has Moza or Mosey, however you want to call it, that really, really competes with E0 Moza. In fact, if you have E0 S0 Topaz, having E6 Moza is actually better than having the Topaz. Topaz starts outperforming Moza when she has her S1, and even then you can put the S1 on Moza and still outperform the Topaz. When you have Topaz at E1, then Topaz becomes her best in slot, and then Topaz E6 becomes the second best in slot. Another character that can compete, and I already made a video on this, is Hunt March, the new Hunt March. She provides a lot of follow-up attacks. She provides damage bonuses and break efficiency, which is really, really good for Feixiao. And then another character is E1 Jade. Even though E1 Jade doesn't provide any buffs directly to Feixiao, she helps her clear out the ads on the sides and helps her face more of an AoE scenario. So between the two of them, they can clear out single target and AoE scenarios pretty strongly. Either way, any of those characters that you pick is going to be very, very good for Feixiao, and the team is going to be very strong. You can pretty much mix and match because everybody's going to have Hunt March. And then if you're going for Feixiao, odds are you are going to get Moza eventually. So now the other two slots, like every other version of this team, is a derivative of it. Essentially, Robin is her best in slot harmony. There's really no replacement there. But if you don't have Robin, you can possibly run Sparkle because you get away with just spamming skill points. Ruan Mei is actually a really strong one, even though when you run Ruan Mei, I recommend swapping over to Speed Boots because Ruan Mei can help her go even faster. And since you don't have any action advance at all, you want to get as many turns as possible, and Ruan Mei can help you with the speed if you swap over to Speed Boots. Another two characters that I recommend is going to be Hanya and Asta. I think Hanya is probably a little better because she does offer a damage debuff as well, or a vulnerability debuff as well as giving her speed and attack. So Hanya, very, very strong. Asta also very, very strong. Yeah, both of them have attacking skills, which is really, really good for Feixiao because obviously we want hits. And then another option that can slot into this slot right here, which is the Robin slot, is S1 Jiao Xiao or S1 Jiao Q. If you have S1 Jiao Q, he's giving Feixiao 74% vulnerability on ultimate, which is an insane amount of damage. I haven't really tested this team out that much, but it's really, really strong. And I'm going to be testing it out live live when I pull for Feixiao next week, so make sure you tune in for the stream next week. And probably my favorite, last but not least, is going to be E4 Bronya. E4 Bronya is just fun and comical, first of all because you have to be incredibly unlucky to get E4 Bronya. Then at E4, Bronya transforms into a follow-up attack unit. Whenever a teammate hits an enemy that is wind weak, Bronya is going to launch a follow-up attack. So she is going to advance Feixiao, so you can run attack boost comfortably, advance Feixiao, and then when Feixiao goes, Bronya goes, another character goes, let's say Aventurine does the basic onto the enemy is wind weak, Bronya launches a follow-up attack, Feixiao gets another turn, or gets another stack. So it's really good synergies. So E4 and above Bronya works tremendously well with Feixiao. It's probably one of my favorite ones that I'm more excited to try. And that's pretty much about it. There's not really a lot. Like I said, Robin is just irreplaceable here, but if you just don't have her, which I don't recommend not having her and having Feixiao, you have several other options that you can play around. As far as sustains, Aventurine is her natural best in slot because not only he has incredible survivability for the team, he also launches an insane amount of follow-up attacks, and he single-handedly gives her about 1.5 ultimates from my testing in average on a 2-cycle clear. So Aventurine himself is on par with the other follow-up attackers in bringing stacks to Feixiao, which is incredibly valuable. A new character that's going to release in the second half of this patch is going to be Linxia, who also have follow-up attacks, but I don't think she's going to be as strong as Aventurine in that regard. Another character that can work really, really well here is also Gallagher with the multiplication 3-star light cone, because he gets a lot of turns between his ultimate, his enhanced basic, his basic, and his multiplication light cone action advance. Gets Gallagher a lot of turns, which results in stacks for Feixiao as well. Now, her second team is kind of like a newer archetype of team. I don't think we've ever seen a team like this before, really. It consists of 3 follow-up attack DPSs and then Aventurine or some other type of sustain. Obviously, you have your Feixiao, which is going to be your main DPS, and then you're going to pick 2 out of the other 4 characters that I previously mentioned, being Hunt March, Topaz Replacements, Moza, or E1 Jade, and then you're going to throw them all in the same team and then have Aventurine or Linxia or Gallagher be the sustainer of the squad. And this team is actually really, really strong, has surprisingly fast clear times as well. So if you have those characters, try that out as well. You may end up liking it more than the regular Robin team. Lastly, for a pro priority, when it comes down to vertically investing into Feixiao, I'm going to recommend the S1 first because it yields in 23.5% damage increase when compared to the E1, which only results to about a 17% damage increase. The difference is not that big, but still the light cone comes out on top. The 54% or 54% defense ignore that the light cone has is just a lot, as well as the added crit rate. It's just too much. So I am going to recommend the S1 unless you have Dr. Ratio's light cone. If you have Dr. Ratio's light cone, then I recommend going for the E1 instead, because you're probably never going to use Dr. Ratio and Feixiao on the same team. If you do, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't think you can stretch resources that thin. But if you do, then good on you. But if you have Dr. Ratio's light cone, you can get away with not getting her light cone and then just getting her E1. Dr. Ratio and Feixiao can share Dr. Ratio's light cone. Her E2 transforms Feixiao into an ultimate machine. Essentially, every follow-up attack launched on the team is going to count for 1 full stack instead of half a stack. Remember that the talent says that every 2 attacks, you get 1 flying Aurus, but now with the E2, every 1 follow-up attack counts for 1 flying Aurus, which means that every 6 follow-up attacks per turn transforms into an ultimate. So with Aventurine, Topaz Replacements, and Moza on the same team, including Feixiao's follow-up attack, you are going to get 6 follow-ups regardless of what turn it is. So that pretty much guarantees that you're going to ult every single turn. Her E4 doubles her toughness damage for her follow-up attacks and also gives her a little speed boost whenever she does fire a follow-up attack. And then her E6 increases her rest pen for all types by 20% and makes her follow-up attacks count as ultimate damage, and also increases that multiplier from the follow-up attack from 110 to 250, which is an insanely strong, massive increase to that follow-up attack. That is insane. Overall, she is a fantastic follow-up attack single target damage dealer. Even though her best performance is locked behind Robin and Aventurine, odds are that if you are a follow-up attack team player, then you already have Robin and Aventurine already built up and ready to go. So it's really not going to be an issue to run Feixiao on there. That's going to be the end of my guide. Are you pulling for Feixiao? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And until next time, guys. See ya.